Good evening, everybody. This is Richard with our Week 3 discussion board. I was very excited to have this topic for our discussion board. I've done something similar with my high school track students when we put on an event for the surrounding elementary schools. We put on an Olympic-style event and invited all the fifth graders for an introduction almost into track and field. So let's get started. So my grade that I'd primarily focus on for something like this is ninth graders, and my subject area is physical education. My kind of problem that we're going to be solving is how do we teach track and field to fifth graders, and the way we would kind of through design, I would like to use like a slideshow that we kind of build out per event that showed the rules, regulations of each event, and kind of break our students out into specific events and kind of allow them to work in groups. Some of the learning experiences that I really aim for is letting my students understand the modification process and why we do things, and kind of seeing the fairness behind that. Kind of helps give them a little bit more depth of knowledge, just and awareness of the world around them, and then being able to kind of get a deep dive on the analysis of rules and what we are physically doing. This type of PBL could be used for any type of sports. For instance, when you look at like the modifications, or how do we get students into basketball at a young age, or what are some of the rule changes that we see, what are some of the modifications that we see that allow students or children in general who are a little bit smaller, not as strong, able to participate in the same game that you do, just at a little bit of a smaller scale. We even see this with something in California with football. Schools that just don't have large student populations don't play 11-man football, they play 8-man football to allow them to still have those experiences, but just on a smaller scale. And the field's smaller, the team is smaller, some of the rules are changed, but there are modifications to allow for some smaller schools to participate still. Moving on, really the primary focus is trying to get more kids interested in sports at a young age. So when we're looking at the project itself, some of the things we want to focus on, some of our ESL students, and being able to offer either translations or of the rules, or allow them to do the assignment in their native language, and then translate it later, or being able just to offer like a video assignment instead of putting together all of these slides, being able just to record themselves like I am now and describe everything that they want to do and want to change for, in this instance, a specific track event. Moving on to some of our slow learners, being able to use additional time and resources, but also that's very specific to what that student needs. I know we kind of get more into like the interests and other things, but if we have a student that's a visual learner and they want to do a poster board instead of using technology because they're just not good with using technology, being open to having those types of modifications is super important. Pushing on to some of our other areas, like areas of interest, I kind of struggled with this, but I think something that would be a great alternative for someone who just doesn't really like track and field. Now, this is specific to ninth graders, and my assumption is I'd be doing this in front of a PE class. But being able to just like, hey, let's build out a game for fifth graders, and then kind of push them to look at some of the classic board games that they may or may not have played growing up, Candyland, Battleship, things of that nature, and just kind of taking, okay, well, look at the rules there, and why do we have those rules, and kind of building out like a game board instead of doing a rule change for basketball or a rule change for track and field, something that they may not be interested in. And then lastly, thinking about, okay, how do we assign this work? Again, just piggybacking off of, the modifications of utilizing alternative methods of, whether it's like the poster board, whether it's, even a written out, document that has all the rules and stuff, if they're not a very, visual or creative person, but, making the options to be able to work in groups. Now, for this particular, I would assign this as a group project. I just feel like it's necessary because of the amount of in-depth that has to go into this particular assignment. But that's all I have for us tonight. You guys have a wonderful night, and I will see you in class.